Hello guys, welcome back. Now we will see the options and settings available in Power BI. So if you go to File, we have something called Options and Settings. So just go here. So here we have two different type of options. One is global options, one is report options. For example, which are common to each and every Power BI file, and which are specific to this current Power BI file. We have two set of options. So the first option in the global is data load. So even if you open Power BI desktop at your end, these options will remain same, and these may be different because few has to be unchecked, few will be checked by default. So auto datetime for new files means, for example, if you have any date fields, let's say if you have any hire date, date of birth of a person, or a join date or creation date, something date fields in your database. So by default, if you turn on this auto datetime for new files, this will turn the hierarchy of a date. For example, if this is enabled, the date hierarchy will be enabled. For example, year, month, day, and quarter. So we will see this in action once we load data to Power BI. So we'll again revisit these options sometimes, like to explain what is hierarchy and how this option is related to that. So for now, if it is default by enable, this will create a hierarchy. And this is data cache. So if you keep loading data to Power BI, it will store in cache, and it will be storing data into memory. And this is the default one. We don't go and change often, and this is something which we just leave like this is a system option. We don't go and change something here. Even there's something called Q&A. Even the Q&A means we have something called ask a question or Q&A from Microsoft, where if we ask a question in the Power BI, that will respond with a visual. We will see that in action. Even that also stores something in memory, and we can clear the cache, or this will keep increasing if you keep asking questions in Power BI. Similarly, if you keep importing data to Power BI, that will store in cache. That is what we are here. That is what we are seeing here. And there is something called Power Query Editor, which is very important. So if you see here, there is something called transform data. This was a new name given for the recent update. Actually, the old name was edit queries. Edit queries means if you want to edit something which you are loaded from from different sources, if you load something to Power BI, and if you want to change the data according to your reporting needs, we are going to transform the data. Like how ETL works, we just extract data and we do some transformations on top of that, and the end result we use to load data to different destination. Similarly, in Power BI, if you load data from multiple sources, and if you want to change that, or if you want to transform that using some options available in Power BI, we use something called edit queries. This is called Power Query Editor. So now the name is transform data. The old name was edit queries, but both are same. So here we have multiple transformations which are similar to your ETL operations. Like we have many ETL rules in the market like SSIS, Talent, Pentaho, Informatica, Data Stage, Oracle, ODI. There are many tools. So similarly, these are the basic ETL operations where we can use in Power BI desktop to transform our data according to our needs. So here, these options specific to Power Query Editor. So let me show you how this looks. So if you click on transform data, the very first option is transform data. So this will take us to Power Query Editor. So those options are specific to this. So here we have again multiple tabs like home, transform, add columns, view, tools, and each tab has multiple options to work on based on your data. Because currently we don't have anything here, it is still disabled. If we load something, it will be enabled, and we can use these operations, these options to do some changes in our reporting, in our data level. And if everything is done, we can go with close and apply, and those changes will be applied to your data. That is the purpose of this transform data. So here these options are specific to Power Query Editor. So here we can just, whatever the options we are going to see in option setting, that is to enable or disable. So if something is enabled, if you want to disable, you can disable. If something is disabled, if you want to enable, you can enable. So display the query settings pane, display the formula bar. This is something where we can see in the Power Query Editor. So if you want to enable them, we can enable. If you want disable, we can disable. So, but again, we will revisit this same page when we are discussing about Power Query Editor. So I'll just revisit this. I'll show what is query settings pane and what is formula bar, and why should we hide that, or why should we show that, everything. We will see that once we are there. But for now, just understand this option is something specific to Power Query Editor. All these options, everything is specific to that. And direct query. So in Power BI, we have mainly different ways we can import data. We can load data to Power BI. The main ways to load data are import mode, direct query mode, mixed mode, and live connection. We have 4 different type of connections available in Power BI. So that is direct query is one of them. Again, I'm repeating: import, direct query, uh, live connection, and mixed mode, which is a combination of direct query plus import mode. So if someone are using SAP HANA as their source, and if they want to, they can just treat this as relational source. So this option will be only useful who is working on SAP HANA, not for everyone. And similarly, R scripting, Python scripting. So being a visualization tool, this will not just data load from relational databases. We can also use scripting from Python and also R language. We can also load their R and Python packages into Power BI, and we can use them to start visualization. So it is something who is working on Python and scripting, because I don't know R and Python. Maybe in future, if I learn this, maybe I can able to start loading the packages and I can display something. But this is something for them. It's not mandatory to learn R and Python to use Power BI Desktop, because there was a myth like many people are asking me earlier, should we know Excel before Power BI? Excel is different and Power BI is different, but it is good to have knowledge on Excel and databases. But at least database knowledge should be mandatory, because we work with data and we should know how data works and how data flows from one source to other sources. That is something, the basic knowledge we need for Power BI. Excel is not mandatory. If you are from Excel background also, you may see some similarities between Excel and Power BI, but it's not completely Excel, and it's not mandatory to have Excel knowledge before Power BI. Similarly, no need to have knowledge on Python or to work on Power BI Desktop, but we have an options for them to use Power BI Desktop for their reporting purpose. Similarly, security, these are all by default system options. We don't go and change these options. Similarly, privacy is all same thing. And regional, the same. By default, Windows language, whatever you're using, it will display, and this is also same. Same system settings. We don't go and change these things. Updates. So now currently we have March update. So let's say, for example, now we are in April. Let's assume we're in April, and we get April update. So in that case, even though Power BI, release the new versions each and every month, if Power BI Desktop wants to what we can notify you, we have to enable this option. So if you see the screen, wherever I'm holding the cursor, this place will get something called update available, click to download. That is the notification we are going to see when there is a new Power BI update. So currently it is a new version, that is why we don't see anything here. That is why it is at some point in future, old versions of Power BI will stop working. So as of now, the old versions will work without any issues, even though the reports which are developed in older versions will open in newer versions. Maybe in future, we don't know, they may deprecate that, and they will implement strictly that we should have the new version of Power BI. And it is just telling that we'll notify you at least 30 days prior to your version expiry date. So here we are going to get a notification that update is available, and download that. If you enable this, this will show. If not, this will not be shown. But this is by default, this will be enabled, and it is not recommended to disable this, because at least it will remind us to install the updates. Again, this is same system options. Diagnostics is something even I haven't used any of these options so far. But one thing what we can see here is a version. Now we can see here is March 2020. This is the version number. Yeah, if you have any other versions, you can check, go to diagnostics option here, and you can check here as a version. So same thing, if something in April, if you have a new update, this will be April 2020. So these are the new options again as per the updates. Enable in report and query editor. For example, this is the query diagnostics we are going to use for this. We will see this once we have in Power Query Editor. Preview features, this is also something which we can focus on. Let's say, for example, Power BI is trying to add some new updates to Power BI Desktop. So initially what happens is this will not release that update directly into Power BI Desktop. Initially they will release those updates as preview features. It means they will list out these features in under the preview features, and they will ask the users to use those features. Then after users used all those features, they'll ask for the feedback whether this option is really useful for you, or you may require some changes in the option just for the user opinion. So it is like they'll if whenever they're going to release a new feature, they'll first release a preview feature. So let users test those preview features and work in their reporting. Once everything is fine, then they will make them as a live. So even though now, for example, the recent update in the March update, we have an option called hierarchy slicer. This was not there so far. There was a custom visual called hierarchy slicer, but there is something called default visual in Power BI. So if you see here, there are many visuals, and each visual has its own name. This is called filter slicer, we call. So here we cannot enable hierarchies in this visual by default. Now we have an option to enable. So if you click on the preview features, if you click on learn more, then it will navigate us to the feature, what exactly they're trying to tell us. It will display in the preview features. So this is part of the latest, the hierarchy is part of latest update. This is the slicer. This is what I'm explaining. So if you want to use that feature in Power BI Desktop, we have to enable this, then only this will be enabled, because it is still in preview mode. Once after getting opinions from user, okay, if they found useful, then they will make it live. Then this name will be removed from this preview feature. It means it is already live. No need to enable this one to use that option, because it's already enabled by default. That is what it means. So it is depends on the users. Again, same thing. This is one of the options, automatic page refresh. This is one of the newer options released in the recent updates. This is a very useful option for direct query reporting. So earlier there was something, okay, we will discuss this in detail once we are in actual reporting like import direct query. So how this option works, this is very useful option, automatic page refresh. This also will be, if you want to use this one, we have to enable this one. By default, this will not be enabled because it is still a preview feature. And it means like we should mandatorily enable this to work on this. Yes, we should mandatorily enable this to work on these features. But even though if you don't enable, other options will work perfectly and we can do reporting. If you want to use only these options, then we have to enable and use those options. And auto recovery is something like this is something a pretty straightforward option. Let's say if you're working on any application, if that closes in between, like accidentally it got closed, and it will be keep asking to recover. Like the same thing. Even let's say for example, if you're in Excel, if any of the file got closed accidentally, and if you want to open, next time whenever you open Excel, it will be asking to recover the file. Similarly, if you're working in Power BI Desktop and something got crashed in between, and let's say for example you're middle of some work, you didn't save. For example, this is a save option. Let's say you have done something and you didn't save, you forget to save. If something closes in between, then after every 10 minutes it will be asking for recovery. Okay, can we recover that file or like that? This will be enabled by default because that is very useful option. Sometimes knowingly or unknowingly we'll just close the files, and this is very useful option that time, because all the work which was not saved we have done so far, it will be gone if this option was not enabled. And report settings, the same. We have smart guides. It means we will see what is smart guides, but for now I just explain in for example, if you drag and drop visual here, if we move the visual here, there will be some red lines will appear. This also was not there in the beginning of Power BI. This is also part of last year's update, one of the last year's update. This will be very useful for development. We will see this. We will revisit these options, at least few options whenever we have whenever I want to expand something, we will surely revisit these options and we'll see. And the page alignment, again, there is something called page settings. We can set the page settings like page height and page width. And also we have something called wallpapers in the background of the page. This is the page and this is the wallpaper. So wherever you are seeing the dotted line, after dotted line, it is wallpaper. It is called report page. So here by default alignment, how the page should look by default whenever you open Power BI Desktop. So by default, it will be top of the wallpaper. and I prefer to set to center because that will give the perfect look and feel. And also it is, I mean, it's my personal experience. It will be good if we enable to center because that will have a clear idea how the page size is, how the page height is, everything we can see. And you can see new filter pane. This is what I was talking. If you already any whole report, and if you want to open that whole report with this new filter pane, we can enable this. So now earlier it was a different option where we can hide and show this filter pane. Now this is by default, this is the filter pane, and here this is the option to enable the same thing for the older reports. That is the option. And this is the global options where we can see where we can, this will be common for all the reports of Power BI desktop. And current file, these are specific to this current file. So type detection, let's say for example, we all know there is something called data types. Let's say there is integer data type or date type or a string, text, these are the types. So whenever we load data to Power BI desktop, let's say the Power BI want to detect which data type it is, we can enable this option. Again, these are all enabled by default. If you want to disable, we can do that. Relationships, same thing. If your data source is like say it is a relation database like a SQL Server or Oracle or PostgreSQL, by default we create relationship between the tables like primary key relationship, foreign key relationship. We create the relations in the database. So whether do you want Power BI to uh, get those relationship by default when you try to import data? In that case, we just click on S. So whenever you try to import multiple tables like 4 or 5 tables at the same time, so it will automatically detect relationship between those tables, and this will bring those as well into Power BI. Even though if you disable this one, you can manually create relationship in Power BI. So, but this is the default option. Even if you hover this I symbol, which is information symbol, it will be clearly specifying the same thing. Before loading data, find existing relationship between tables such as foreign keys relation database and import them with the data. If you disable this relationship will not be seen in the Power BI level, but you can create manually here also. We will see that in the data modeling. The third tab, which is data modeling, there we can see what is this and how it will be useful. Similarly, update or relationship and refreshing data. Let's say, for example, now we have 5 tables which are loaded to Power BI desktop, and 5 tables have their own relationships. Let's say once after loading data to Power BI desktop, in the backend, in the database, we have changed some relationship between the tables. But if you, whenever you try to update the data, for example, we have something called refresh option. Refresh option means to update the report, update the data. So while doing refresh of the data, if Power BI finds something new relation between the tables, whether that to be enabled or disabled, that is the option. By default, this will be disabled because let's say we have 2 tables where there is something called ID and ID we have all relationship is there, and based on relationship only we build some reports out of that. And let's say if something changes in the back end, that will also affect the report, complete report. That's why it is not defaultly enabled, but if you want, we can enable this. Similarly, new relationships, let's say I have just 5 tables now which are loaded from database or Excel. So even the Excel sheets, in Excel we have sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3. Once we load data to Power BI desktop, those will be considered as tables. Those will be called as tables, not sheets. So everything we call as tables here. So let's say I have 5 different sheets loaded from Excel or 5 different tables loaded from database. Let's say if we add some 6th table, new table. So for these 5 tables, is something relationship with the other table? If yes, that also will detect automatically. So for relationship detection, we have 3 options, whether you can use this or whether you can disable this. But this will give, for example, let's say you import 10 tables at the same time. That time it will detect something automatically and it will give relationship to all the tables. That time we have to again go back and delete the relationships and create on your own. Sometimes this will be useful, as sometimes it will be a rework for you if you import more and more tables at a single point of time. And the same thing, auto date time. So because this is a global option, even though you enable here, I mean if you disable here, it will be disabled everywhere. But this is specific to this report. If you want to make sure The date time is if you want to see in hierarchy like year, month, day, year, quarter, month, and day, you can enable the same thing. It's a global option. It is a report option. And data preview, by default, if you try to load data into Power BI, this will give the preview. That is for that. Parallel loading, again, this will load multiple tables in parallel, multiple queries in parallel. Let's say if you have 10 different tables, if you refresh the report, it will fetch data from all the 10 tables parallelly instead of waiting for some other table to finish and bring data again and again. These are all the default options which will be enabled whenever you install Power BI Desktop. And Q&A, this is something we will discuss. We have something called ask a question. There is an option called ask a question. I don't know where it went. Yeah, Q&A. It is we'll see this in action. We'll ask some questions to Power BI. So based on our data, this will reflect with a visual. So that to be enabled using that option. That is the first option in report settings. The current report settings. Same regional settings. You can set whatever the language. We have different regions available, and whichever you are in region, you can. And privacy auto recovery is same again. The same. Already we have enabled auto recovery here. That's why we no need to again enable here, because this is a global option. Instead of going to each and every report enable this auto recovery, that will be set for once in the global options, and this will applicable to all the report whenever you open Power BI Desktop. So direct query, here we have two different options. These specific to direct query. So we talk something about performance of reports. So there are various ways to improve performance of your existing report. So out of those different approaches, if your report is loading from direct query mode, still we are not there, but we will see what is direct query. So that time again I'll leave it here. I'll explain what is these two options, direct query and query detection. So these two are specific to the performance improvement of a report whenever we use direct query mode for loading the data. And report settings, the same options specific to few, for this report. So persistent filters, this means let's say for example, this will comes in Power BI service in general. We have a filters here. Let's say for example, we have a country filter or year filter. If the users filter those, if the user selected those filters, and if they go back to some other report and visit back the other report again, okay, let me rephrase the same. Let's say we have report 1. In the report 1, we have two different filters. One is country filter and year filter. Let's say they have selected country India and year 2020, and the data will reflect accordingly based on the filters. Now, let's say they have jumped to report 2 for other analysis. Now from report 2 again, if they come back to report 1, this filter will still apply. That is called persistent filters. It means it will save the filters what they have applied in the report 1, even though they switch back from report to report. But usually that will be enabled by default. If you don't want to allow them to save the filters whenever they switch back from report to report, we can disable them. We cannot allow, we no need to allow them. So this option will be seen in Power BI service. I'll explain that time how this option can be used. And similarly, we have modern visual header. This is something like this. If you click any visual, this is called visual header. We can format these things like different colors and background colors. This is option specific. If you want to enable these, or if you want to do some changes or format those options, this is the option we have. And change default interaction from cross highlighting to cross filtering. It means, again, this is also very useful option in Power BI. Let's say we have two visual. See, now I'm just clicking the visual. It is coming here on this. The thing is, let's say for example, you have something to see here and something to see here. If you click on something here, this visual will filter accordingly. That is called, by default, we have the filter enabled between the tables or any visuals. If you click something here, this will be filtered. If you click something here, this will be filtered if they have proper relationship. So there are two different ways of filtering that. One is cross highlighting, one is cross filtering. It means, let's say here we are showing sales by country, and here we are showing profit by country. Let's say if select on India here, the India will highlight. It means let's say we have five different countries: India, US, Japan, China, and some other country. If you click on India, India will just highlight, others will be grayed out. That is called cross highlighting. Cross filtering means if you click on India, all four will not be visible, only India will be shown. That is cross filtering. Filtering is different, highlighting is different. So we will see that in action once we export data and work with the visuals. But for now, just remember we have two different options to cross highlight and cross filter. So by default, which one you want to enable? That is this option. So if you go to report settings, again, default visual interaction from cross highlighting, cross filtering. By default, it is cross highlighting. So if you want to, again, we can change that in report level, but at any point of time, if you want to see cross highlighting compared to cross filtering, we can enable this option. And export data is for the end user. Once the report is published to Power BI service, whether they can export data or not. For example, we have a tabular visual where we have detailed data we are showing in the table visual, and we'll allow them to export the report, the visual to Excel for their analysis. So whether this is the options, we can give them, like whether they can enable, where they can export the data or not, we can use here. By default, we allow the end users to export from Power BI service to the Excel. And here we have allow users to filter types. I think it's something new I'm seeing. Enable search for filter pane. Okay, this is something, this one. So you can see search option here. This is also newly introduced. This was not there. So here, when we keep adding filters, let's say country, year, month, location, there are many filters applied here. So if there are many filters, if you want to search something, we can use search here. So this will be enabled, disable the search, because filtering experience is something which is specific to this part, this portion. Similarly, allow users to change filter types. For example, the users, once you publish the report to Power BI service, sometimes what happens is we explicitly enable some filters. Let's say, for example, in the complete report, you want to see only 2020 data or 2019 data. For example, it can be any case. Or in other example, let's say if you want to see only India data, we just explicitly do some filters and apply here. So if this will enable the users to change the filters and they can see the data. So this is one more thing we can, but instead of enabling or disabling here, there is something called hide and show. So if we hide this filter pane, once we publish the report to Power BI service, this will not be visible to the users. Anyway, we will see everything once we are doing the real-time examples. But make sure these options few will ignore because okay, we will not use these options. But still, it is good to know, have all these options, why these options are useful, and which options lead to which section of Power BI desktop. And enable this updated Power BI pane. This one I was talking, as I told, from March, or maybe the March is the last month to enable or disable. So now you see here, I have disabled the new filter pane, and now we can see here. So by default, this was the state of filters earlier: visual level filters, page level filters, report level filters. These are the three names which we are using from the beginning in the Power BI desktop until the last year. So because they've introduced the new filter experience in Power BI desktop, now the same names were translated to some new names. Now just observe carefully: visual level filters, page level filters, report level filters. Now if I go here in the report settings and enable this, now here you can see filters on this visual, which is equal to visual level filters. Filters on this page is equal to page level filters. Filters on all pages is report level filters. The names are changed, but functionally both are same. Names are different, but functionally both are same. So we will see this in action. What is this and what is this and what is this? But this will be, we use this frequently in our reporting, either this or this or this. And other options we have here. Yeah, I think these are the options. Yeah, cross report drill through. This is again a new option we got introduced to in the last year. So in Power BI we have two different type of reports. One is drill down reports, drill through reports. This is very common uh, language in reporting environment, drill through and drill down. So for example, in Power BI by default we can drill through from one page to other page. Let's say for example, I have 4 different pages. I can pass filters from page 1 to page 2, and whatever the filter that is passed from page 1 to page 2, we can see their respective data in page 2. That is called passing a filters from one page to other page of Power BI report page. That is drill through feature. We will see that in detail in action with example. But cross report drill through means is for the new option introduced. Let's say I have 2 different reports. I can able to pass filter from one report to other report. Earlier it was not there. I think this is also a new option introduced in last year. So before 2019 or mid of 2019, this option was not there. We can able to drill through only from between the pages of a single report. Because of cross drill through functionality, we can also pass a filters from one report to other report that can be seen in detail in Power BI service. Because even though we enable here, we cannot experience here because this cross report is mainly for Power BI service. We will see with example when we are discussing about Power BI service with an example. That is called cross report drill through function. And I think these are the options we have under options and settings. So just go through these options once and just try to understand what are these options. If you have any questions, please post in the comments. I'll answer those questions. And we have something called data source settings. So currently we don't have anything here. That is why even though if you try to open this option, data source settings, I mean, this will not make sense because we don't have anything. These are some old resources I have loaded to Power BI. But these data source settings can be accessed using file options and settings and here, or otherwise, because we generally don't go here and access the settings, we just go here at the home section where something called data source settings here under transform data. So if you're using old version of Power BI, you can see edit queries and data source settings. In the newer version, it will be transform data source setting. So if you open this one from here or from there, both are same. This is something to be used if you have already data imported from multiple sources into Power BI desktop. If you want to edit the source, let's say for example, if you want to change the username and password, or if you want to point to some new database of the same server, in that case, we use this option to change the settings of a data source. So these are the options, guys. Please go through these options once and make yourself familiar with the Power BI desktop before we go into actual content, pulling data and work on report development. So thank you so much. Please practice. If any questions, please post in comments. That's all I have, guys. Thank you so much.